Hi everyone. Today we are going to look at IPM 2023 verbal section para completion questions. Now let's read the instructions. The instruction says each of the paragraphs given below has a sentence missing, which is indicated by a blank. From the choices given below each paragraph, choose the sentence that seems most logically appropriate to complete the paragraph. Let's read the paragraph. Before we read, just a couple of things to remember. Whatever option we are selecting and in whichever way we are filling the blank, it should be in sync with the overall theme of the paragraph. So do notice what is the tone, what is the theme, what is the paragraph mainly talking about. And more importantly, whatever option you're filling the blank with, it should really assimilate and sync with the sentences that are before the blank and after the blank. So they also become very important. Let's do this question. The concept of the villa and other European ideas came to Lucknow with foreign soldiers, travelers, and adventurers. For the Nawabs of Lucknow, architecture became the physical manifestation of their new status and a way of proclaiming their alignment to the new power bloc. There's a blank. Villas hence proved an ideal substitute. Europeans sold to the Nawab the idea of villas based on designs and publications carried by them and often aided by memory. The building chosen as a prototype is as a model for the famous Dilkusha Koti was a country house in Northumberland. Now, the entire paragraph is talking about how many ideas along with villa came to India and they came to especially to Lucknow, and how the Nawabs were influenced by the Europeans and how. So if you read the sentence that is prior to the blank, for the Nawabs of Lucknow, architecture became the physical manifestation of their new status and a way of proclaiming their alignment to the new power bloc. So here, new power bloc is basically the Europeans they are talking about. Villas hence provided an ideal substitute. So if I'm looking for a substitute, hence it proved to be a substitute. So keep these things in mind and let's look at the options now. Option A says the villa became the backdrop to both the private as well as the court life of the Nawab. So the paragraph is not talking about that it became the backdrop. It does talk about that how villas, they were seen as a method of being in alignment with the new power bloc. The Nawab chose to live in villas because they were easier to construct than palaces. So the construction cost and the comparative analysis of a house and the villa is not given. So option B can be eliminated. Option C, the Nawabs were attracted to European ideas in architecture because of their foreignness. Now, the paragraph clearly states that why it became or why they became aligned with it is not because they were foreign. It is because they wanted to be associated or they wanted to, use villas or, the entire architecture as a physical manifestation of their new status and a way of proclaiming their alignment with the new power bloc. So it was not due to foreignness, it was due to that they wanted to be seen as somebody powerful. Option D, the Nawab of Lucknow fancied building palaces that resembled British ancestral homes. So that resembled, why? Because I want to be associated with something that represents power and hence provided an ideal substitute. So correct answer to this question will be option D. There's a blank. So the next sentence to it is extremely crucial. Conflicts are now brewing over rivers and river basins shared by many countries around the world. So we are not talking about India, we are not talking about one continent, but countries around the world, and the conflicts are now brewing. So the tone is negative. This is not unexpected. Now see, use of double negative, not unexpected, unexpected. So not an un gets cancelled and it becomes expected. So if I say something is not rare, so not rare is anything which is frequent, right? This is not unexpected given the fact that more than 200 water bodies are shared by 2 or more countries. Strife over water, for example, is erupting erupting, present continuous tense, is erupting throughout the Middle East from the watersheds of the Nile to the Tigris and the Euphrates River. Let's look at the options. Option A says the world does not consider water to be the scarce resource it is. If the world does not consider water to be the scarce resource, why are the conflicts erupting? And especially the word conflicts are now erupting, because if I don't consider anything scarce, why will I fight over it? So this is contradictory to the overall theme. B, with water bodies becoming increasingly scarce and development of new sources of water extremely costly, international water tensions are expected to rise. Now, they mentioned Middle East, they have said that, it is, a lot of countries are fighting around the world, right? And 200 water bodies are shared by 2 or more countries. So all of this indicates about the international, which is also present in option B. So let's park option B for now. Let's look at option C. So we have parked it, we have eliminated this one. It might be a cliche, but given how scarce it is, water is the new oil of the 21st century. So what is the new oil of 21st century? First of all, it does not indicate, it definitely tells that water is scarce, but whether we are fighting over it or not, maybe, when we say water is the new oil, so are we talking about that, it will become, as expensive as oil? So it can be taken into that direction, therefore, can be eliminated. Fresh water is increasingly in short supply, with nearly 2/3 of the global population living in water stress condition. So global population living in water stress condition, if it is already there, then why are the conflict erupting now? So something must have happened very recently. So if I look at option B talks about the present continuous tense, that this is happening, this is right now evolving. Therefore, we'll go with option B, that one. That with water becoming increasingly scarce and development of new sources of water extremely costly. International water, because we did talk about the international, the water related issue internationally. So correct answer will be option B. In the late 1960s, architect Charles Correa began his career as an urban planner, creating New Bombay, now Navi Mumbai, an urban area that provided housing and job opportunities for many who lived across the harbor from the original city. So the first sentence starts with the introduction of the architect, but then it later on develops into how he develops Navi Mumbai, an urban area that provided housing and job opportunities for many who lived across the harbor from the original city. In the midst of overpopulated cities, he tried to create quasi-rural housing environment. Quasi, which is not, quasi means half, not completely. So not completely a city, not completely a rural area, somewhere in middle. In all of his urban planning commissions, Correa avoided high-rise housing solutions. So Navi Mumbai being developed, urban area which provides housing and job opportunities to many, and in midst of overpopulated cities, he tries to create a quasi-rural housing environment that is not completely rural, not completely urban. In all his urban planning commissions, Correa avoided high-rise housing solutions. Now we have to continue further. He focused on low-rise dwelling solutions that emphasized the human scale and created a sense of community. We can park this sentence because if we look at this, he's saying that he avoided high rise. If I'm avoiding high rise, then my focus will be on low rise. So let's park it. His early work combined traditional architecture values and the modernist use of materials. We are not talking about what materials he used. The paragraph is not talking about his architectural values either. So option B is eliminated. Option C, considerations of the Indian climate drove many of his decisions. Again, we are not talking about what were the parameters of his decision, why he did that. He is particularly noted for his sensitivity to the need of the urban poor. Now, here, nowhere the paragraph mentions, he said that he wanted to create a, city or a half rural, half, urban kind of a half village, half urban kind of a situation for many who lived across the harbor. But I don't know whether those people are urban poor or not. So we can safely go with option A, that he avoided high rise, focused on low rise dwelling solutions that emphasize the human scale and created a sense of community. This hint can be taken from quasi-rural housing environment. So correct answer is option A. A study of the social and cultural context of Indian poetry in English reveals several important insights into its origin. So, social and cultural context of Indian poetry in English reveals several important insights into its origin. So, the entire paragraph is about Indian poetry in English and its origin. Indian poetry in English began in Bengal, the province where British first gained a stronghold. In addition, this poetry was largely urban phenomenon centered in Calcutta. There's a blank. Then gradually it moved to other urban centers such as Madras and Bombay. Even today, Indian poetry in English remains largely urban. Moreover, because English was an elite language, Indian poets writing in English came from the upper classes. So sentences before and after the blank. So after the blank says it gradually moved to urban centers such as Madras and Bombay. Sentence before the blank says this poetry was largely urban phenomenon centered in Calcutta. So origin of Indian poetry in English, it began in Calcutta, blank, and then it moved to other urban centers. Let's look at the options. In fact, poetry writing for the first 50 years was confined to a few families who were residents of Calcutta, very much in sync. Let's part. The rulers encouraged the natives to write poetry about India only if their mother tongue was English. This is contradictory, right? Because it is the Indian poetry in English. Option is saying that you can write poetry in English only if your mother tongue was English, which is nowhere mentioned in the passage. Option C, the British had decided that the poetry about India, so again, it's an Indian poetry, but not necessarily poetry about India. These are two different things. Could reach a larger audience if written in Calcutta. If that were the case, then why will it ultimately or lately move to Madras and Bombay? This again makes no sense. Option D, English was seen as an elite language, and so the British felt that only they could use it for poetry. Again, it is not talking about whether Britishers told us or Britishers ordered that only we can use it, or somebody who has a native language as English can use it. So option B and D are eliminated on those grounds. So correct option will be A. Indian poetry in English. It started in India, in Bengal, then they narrowed it down to Calcutta, and then they narrowed it down further that it was confined to few families who were residents of Calcutta. Then gradually it moved to other urban centers. So correct answer to this question will be option A.